So I'm going to talk to you today about social TV, because TV has always been social. I don't think anybody would disagree with that statement. But when I got the brief for this presentation, I thought I'd look into, or have a think about why that was. And basically, I went all the way back to the Mesolithic era. That's 2000 BC to 100,000 BC. I do my research, you see. When language first developed. And I thought about why did language develop? Well, it developed mainly because it is a tool for us sharing experiences. Because, of course, if you're hunting mammoth and you've discovered a new technique, or you've worked out how to light a fire, then it's immensely valuable to be able to pass that on to other people, and of course you get a selective advantage. But what's interesting about that sharing experiences is that the most powerful way of sharing experiences is all about storytelling. In fact, there's been all sorts of psychological studies where they look at people in brain scanners whilst they're being told stories, and various parts of the brain light up as if they were actually doing that action themselves. So I think coming back to TV, fast forward 200,000 years, I think the reason why TV is so inherently social is because if you think about it, it's about the best platform there is for sharing experiences. And of course, it's all about storytelling. And that's what I'm going to really concentrate on today, talking about the storytelling. And what has changed in the last few years is the effect of technology on TV, both through new devices and new platforms, but then users' behavior changing as well. And I'm going to cover that in a moment. But I think the way this is best summed up is that if you look back to TV 20 years ago or 30 years ago, it was all about the phrase, did you watch? Did you watch last night? So whatever, round the water cooler, or, you know, having a cup of tea at the office or something like that. It's, did you watch that show last night? But what's really interesting is that it's now changed to, are you watching? Because, of course, we're all connected to each other. And everything's real time, it's immediate. And that's why there's a real resurgence in event TV. I'm absolutely sure that was Towie that he was referring to just then. I think that's his guilty pleasure. What do you think? Yeah, so changing to are you watching? Now, these technology trends that are causing this effect, I like to divide them into three, which I'll cover just now. The first, I don't need to tell you this, it's already been mentioned, it's the ubiquity of social networks. But in relation to TV or ITV in particular, I mean, we've got 22 million Facebook likes across our shows. No mean feat. I think the X Factor counts for about 6 million of those alone. And some recent research by a company called Second Sync, which I very much recommend you look up if you haven't heard of them, shows that 40% of prime-time tweets are around TV, or what's on TV that evening. I think... here we go. I got one of our research guys to have a look up on Second Sync the other day. In the first 7 weeks of this year, so this was till just after the Brits, there were just shy of 4.3 million tweets mentioning ITV programmes during transmission. And actually, I have to brag here. That compares to 2.8 million for BBC One. But I think the Brits probably did have a bit of an effect there. I think that was 1.5 million alone, or something like that. So the second trend I wanted to cover was growth in tablets and smartphones. Who here has a tablet? Hands up. And who here got a tablet since last autumn, so over Christmas or New Year? So what's that? I reckon that was probably about 5 to 10% growth or something over Christmas alone. I mean, it really is a phenomenon. I think there's some great research we recently released in the last few weeks called ITV Lives, which is freely available on the internet if you want to look it up. It's I think the URL is lives.itvmedia.co.uk. But it shows that 12.8% of the UK population now has a tablet. But of course, they're shared devices anyway, quite often. So, they're often left near the living room sofa, hence their relevance and importance to TV. So, it's probably even greater than that. The third trend I just wanted to cover was it's a bit more of a long-term trend, this, but it's the fact that TVs are being connected to the internet. And this same piece of research, ITV Lives, it shows that 27% of people now have a set-top box that's connected to the internet. So I guess that's Virgin, Sky Anytime Plus, that kind of thing. 8.3% have their TV connected to the internet through a games console, and 4.9% through an internet-enabled TV, such as a Samsung Smart TV. But it's, you know, it's really going to be changing the way that the living room works in the future, especially when you've got different devices working with each other. You know, your mobile phones and your tablets actually communicating with the TV. So those are three key technology trends that are affecting TV and social. But I like to look at things from two ends. You've got technology trends, but you've also got user needs. You know, why do actually people want to use this technology? And you can divide it up all sorts of ways. The way I like to divide it up is like into these four. People love content. They love accessing content whenever and wherever they can. You know, that's, I think, the allure of storytelling as such. They also love to take part. You know, whether it's voting on the X Factor, or you know, playing along, or you know, other forms of taking part. You know, UGC. It's very prevalent. Third user need is community. You know, people want a sense of belonging, and that's community both amongst their friends, you know, using networks like Facebook, but also amongst the general fan community, you know, using, say, networks like Twitter. And then, last but not least, people are really interested in kind of convenience, control, information. And I think this does, I won't really touch on this today, but I don't think it does relate to social TV a fair bit because of, well, to go back to Luke's point earlier about how many billion, well, all the billion terabytes or whatever data that's being produced every 3 days. You know, people are going to have to find this content, so social discovery is a really important aspect there. So I want to just take a couple of these user needs and talk to you about how we're basically using technology, addressing these user needs and getting audiences closer to our content. And the first I wanted to cover was taking part. Check out that transition. Wow. So these are some of our play-along games, which are on smartphone and tablet, and basically allow you to interact with the show. And the one I'm going to concentrate on at the moment is the X Factor play-along game from last year. Basically, we have some of the audience at home are on this game. There's a producer in the studio that's driving it. Every few minutes or so when a different act comes on, the subject at the top changes and you see what the audience think of that act. They can either clap or boo. Then gives a verdict as to what the audience think. If you've signed in with Facebook Connect up there, you also get to see what your friends are saying, you know, whether they're positive or negative about the act. Also have things like polls, of course, and various other little mechanisms for engaging the audience. Now, what the really interesting thing about this, or from my point of view, because I work on new ad formats at ITV, is that this opens up, you know, a whole wealth of opportunities for advertising. And so I'm going to play you a short video here which talks about one of the ad formats that we created last year for this play-along game. Roll VT. I work in TV, I've got to say that.
After the break, time for a break now. Find out who when we come back. Don't go anywhere.
The ad break. The time you get to really speak to your consumers, but also the time they're consumed by the second screen. That's where AdSync comes in, ITV's latest synchronised multi-screen experience for advertisers. AdSync pops up on your smartphone or tablet, syncing with the on-air ad break. AdSync. See what we did there? AdSync invites consumers to interact with your brand for the entire ad break, making engagement fun and interactive. When Tresemme used AdSync during X Factor, they caught the attention of their target market, receiving a click-through rate of 10.2% and an engagement rate of 43.5%. Keep up those curls, girlfriend. And Rimmel's partnership with X Factor had a 13% click-through rate and a 43.4% engagement rate. Perfect pouts all round. AdSync works alongside ITV's most popular programmes, giving more to your consumers and your brand. So captivate your consumers for the whole ad break. AdSync.
So that's the format. We trialled it with about, I think, seven companies last year, and we saw really amazing engagement, basically. These are some of the results, which actually I just finished the trial report the other day, so if you're interested in it, do drop me a line and I'll email it through. Basically, we saw 38% active engagement. That means people who actually were swiping through the panels, the multiple panels of the advert, as opposed to just letting it play automatically. So that's 38% of people actually actively looking through the different panels, highlighting different products and services or content. 8.75% click-through rate. And then we also did a research study with Rimmel. And I mean, Rimmel, actually, I could talk about Rimmel for ages because they're doing so much interesting stuff that touches on social TV around, you know, obviously sponsoring an X Factor vertical to do with makeup. Actually, Rimmel were really upset, by the way, when all the girls got knocked out, I think, with about 5 or 6 shows to go. That wasn't good. But you know, they've been doing really, really exciting stuff with us. And this research project showed that this format boosted things like brand investigation, but also a lot about brand consideration, purchase intent. And there are a lot of positive brand metrics as well, like, you know, value for money, quality, things like that. I mean, I think when you look at the purchase cycle, my personal opinion is that formats like this don't really drive people to the moment of purchase because, you know, after all, you're in the middle of watching X Factor, so it's quite unlikely that you're going to stop there and then to buy Kate Moss lipstick. But what it does do is it takes people to the next stage from just being aware of the brand and initially considering it to active evaluation. And I think you very much see this in the kind of engagement statistics. So next, I just wanted to talk to you very briefly about some interesting ways we're using our community for the purposes of social TV. Because, of course, I've said 22 million Facebook fans, Facebook likes, I think about 5 million Twitter followers or so. How are we using that? Well, here's an example from this morning where Boots, it was Boots number 7, basically sponsor a social event with some of the This Morning talent. So on This Morning, I'm not the normal This Morning demographic, I should point out, especially not for the Beauty Bells. Apparently they have some people called the Beauty Bells who give makeup tips. So this basically happened after the show, and the Beauty Bells spent an hour chatting to fans of This Morning about makeup tips. And you'll notice, I think, at the very beginning there, one of the first tweets, we mentioned that this whole thing is sponsored. We have to use the hashtag because of the recent ASA ruling. But they basically have this hour-long conversation with fans, and then, you know, whatever, we top and tail it with the fact that it's sponsored content. But yeah, I think Boots saw this as very successful. But I wanted to stop talking about our content and start talking about your content. Somebody, a friend of mine who works for a newspaper, I met up with them just at the end of last year, and they said to me, I'm quite jealous of you because you work for the best storytelling platform, or the biggest storytelling platform in the UK. And I said, well, that's all very nice, but isn't the BBC a bigger storytelling platform? They do get higher ratings, well, sometimes. And he said no, because the BBC only tells about 2 stories now, whereas you tell about 30 or 40. And I said, what do you mean? He said, because every advert is a story. And I think that's a really interesting point here. And I think I'm going to reflect back on that point a few times as I show you a few adverts. These are some... So all of these user needs equally relate to your brands as well, I think. You know, if you have the right kind of creators, people are after content. They're after taking part. They're after the community. They're also after convenience and control. You know, it helps boost the utility, maybe bookmarking something for later or coupons, things like that. And I'm just going to show you a few kind of social advertising type concepts and, you know, relate them back to those user needs. So the first one, I hope most of you are aware of this, are you? This Mercedes advert, X Factor. So I won't talk over it for too long, but basically Mercedes ran an advert in the X Factor. It was like a choose your own adventure, and they got the audience to choose via Twitter. So it was like the first part was a minute long, then they got them to tweet 1 or 2 hashtags, and then half an hour later the winning path as such was then broadcast. And I think it had 3 stages or so. Really innovative use of kind of participation advertising here, I think. And there was, we did a research project on it. There was a 22% uplift in appreciation of the ad, a 17% uplift in engagement. And I think this quote is great for summing it up. This is somebody, just a quote from the Quoll study. I first heard about the ad on Twitter as it was trending at the time, which made me wonder what it was all about. After discovering what it was, I soon saw the first part on TV. So, you know, it's actually people are discovering it through their social networks rather than on TV itself. Here you go, here's the end slate with the choice. Next one I wanted to show you. This was another participation ad, but this was using Shazam, who we're partnering with at the moment to allow people to Shazam their ads. I'll play the ad first with audio so you can hear what it said.
Are you ready to feature in the latest Intel Ultrabook advert? For a chance to see yourself on TV, just Shazam the next ad. Get ready, here it comes.
Nice laptop.
Thanks, it's an Ultrabook convertible.
So if you were to Shazam this advert, basically this was the second screen experience you came up with. You were driven through to connect via Facebook Connect. You then said who your Christmas message was going to be to. This was to Mummy, not my mummy, my wife, from Evie and Otis, two of our children. The other one's too little, you know, he's only a few weeks old. No, there's a photo of them. That's my Christmas card that I prepared using Facebook Connect, and then I submitted it in. And it says, stay tuned, you know, to see whether you actually get into the next advert. So then if I show you what happened half an hour later or so, basically the same advert ran again, except this time it was slightly different. I've cut the audio so I can talk over it. This device does look pretty cool, I have to say. So here we go. Here were, I don't know, around 10 to 20 of the Christmas messages that had been submitted in just half an hour before. And this ran a few times with different people. So I think around 50 or so people had their Christmas cards basically broadcast to the nation, which I think is, you know, it's a really exciting and innovative way of involving the audience. And then last up, I'm not sure if you've got Shazam on your phones. Do you have Shazam? If you do, pull it out now because you can try Shazamming this because this is live. I just wanted to show you this ad because I think this is the coolest call to action you will ever see in an advert. I'm sure you've seen it already. It's absolutely amazing.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Buzz Aldrin. 44 years ago, I made a brave decision to journey into space, and it changed my life forever. And now you too can become a member of this privileged group and experience everything that I have. The Lynx Space Academy is looking for regular people like you to go into space. If selected, you'll be sent to our space camp in Florida for rigorous astronaut training. The top recruits will then be rocketed into suborbit in an SXC spacecraft. Are you ready to make history? Then join the Lynx Space Academy and leave a man, come back a hero. Good luck, everyone.
Yeah, so in case you don't have Shazam, that's what you saw on the second screen. But I mean, how cool is that for call to action? You know, Shazam now to go into space. I challenge you, any of you who represent brands, to get a better call to action than that. I think it'll be tough. So back to my point about storytelling. I think that Lynx advert is the most amazing example of storytelling and the power of TV for storytelling within advertising. Because, I mean, I'm never going to actually apply to go into space. I imagine 99-point-something% of the audience who see that advert are not going to consider applying to go into space. But still, you know, it's so evocative. It, you know, it touches upon me. You know, you think makes me think back. I think it's a great riposte to the whole Red Bull Felix Baumgartner event, which was amazing in itself. But it's almost like a bit of a jest at that. You know, you can train somebody for 4 years or whatever, but you know, professional skydiver, or you can actually just literally say anybody can go into space. And you know, it really touches something. I don't know. It's so powerful. And I wanted to show you one last video. It's quite long, but I think you'll like it. That talks about powerful advertising. So I'm just going to roll it, and then I'll explain why I've shown it.
Calm down there. J.R. Hot.
Go compare.
Ackland and Stanley. Who are they? Exactly.
Water in the jug. Don't taste like what it ain't. Gosh.
With it.
An ology.
Milky bars are on me.
I'm the cat with the bass and drum, going around like bum bum bum.
Hey, Tarquil, your chilies aren't right way round.
Claire from work.
He's a very nice man. Very nice man.
Thank you so much. So, do you follow the football at all?
Bass and drum going around like bum bum bum.
Papa? To look at me, but I've commanded armies and conquered worlds.
So yeah, it's quite tear-jerking that almost. If you're, I don't know, like me in your mid-30s, you probably recognise, I don't know, 95% of those adverts or something. And every story should have a happy ending. So my happy ending is, you know, look at the power of that storytelling. Look how amazing that is. How you remember so many of those, and you know, they strike a chord, they touch a memory. And then think about all these technological changes and these changes in user behavior that are happening. And essentially think of the power of TV as a platform combined with social, and you know, think what you could do today. Thank you.